Okay, so remember, we're doing everything in class through the learning modules now in order to, allow the school to see you guys participating in class and know that you're actually completing work. And so last week we were in week 2, and this week we'll be starting week 3. So I wanted to remind you the last task in the week 2, which was last week, is to do your topic proposal, which is actually due Wednesday. The instructions and a link to the Dropbox are at the bottom of the second learning module, but they're also at the top of the third, just to remind you that you're still working on this week. And in the one for week 3's learning module, I also put a link inside of it. If you click here, it brings you to the Purdue Owls webpage on setting up your argument and the different organizational structures you can pick for a persuasive argument. And so there's the Tomlin, the Rogerian, and then the classical method. And so it explains what each is and then gives you an example of each. And so you can use this when answering question 3, a brief discussion of your argumentative strategy and the points you. And so that source right there will help you explain which strategy you're going to use in your argument. And I'm apologizing now for my cough. I'm not 100% better, but I am doing better. So, okay, so this week our main focus is chapter 14. Chapter 14 in the old book is the same as chapter 14 in the new online book. They are the same chapter. Chapter 15 from last week was the same as chapter 13. And so this week it's chapter 14 is the same in the book, in both books. And so that's what you're going to complete. I have a link to the online book right here and a link to each of the different activities right underneath the instructions to do chapter 14, as well as a link to the Dropbox to submit it. And then this week, you guys are actually working on building your annotated bibliography for your persuasive speech. You're going to start building it. It is not due until, what's in here, the 17th. Okay, so that is the end of next week. However, it's going to take you some time to build your annotated bibliography. And so I'm going over what exactly you guys have to do for it so that you can start doing research. Next week, I will actually go over formatting a little more and give you a little more information on how to build it. But the instructions are here. I go over what an annotated bibliography is. This one is a little bit more involved. You're doing a full annotated bibliography for this one, unlike the abbreviated version that we did for the source list for the informative speech. This one actually has a three mini paragraph annotation with each source instead of just the summary. And I'll go over this in a little more detail next week. And so it has information about formatting. There's handouts. I gave you links to resources to help you. And then the requirements. And so you have to have 6 sources for your annotated bib. And so your big task this week, other than doing chapter 14 and submitting your proposal, is to start finding those 6 sources. You want to make sure the sources are academic sources as well. So you don't want to just randomly do Google searches. And if you are finding your sources through Google, you may want to use Google Scholar or make sure that they're from a reputable organization. The library, Benedict College Library, has fixed the links to their online databases. So you can use the online databases through the library with Benedict College as well if you want to. You don't want to just use random blog sites. And so that's the biggest thing when doing your research. Chapter 14 will actually give you a lot of good information on what types of sources would be and what type of information would be relevant for you to use for this type of assignment. And so it will help with your finding sources. So your big tasks this week are to finish your topic proposal. Remember, it needs to be typed in MLA format, Times New Roman 12-point font, double spaced. It must be 1 full page minimum. Okay, and so you're going to submit that here to the Dropbox. You're going to work on chapter 14, and then you're going to start doing research. The beginning of next week, I will actually go over building your annotated bibliography from the research that you've gathered. And when we do our check-ins, I'm going to be talking to you about your sources when you check in this week, just to see where you are on that process. And so that's really your tasks for this week. And so that's all I have for the instructional part of class today. I do want to open up the floor to questions. Does anyone have any questions? I noticed a couple of you haven't typed your name into chat. If you could please type your first and last name into the chat box. That way I know you've attended.
We can leave the chat now, or you're not finished?
Yeah. Yes, no, I'm about to end. I was just waiting to see if anybody had questions.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.